Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome. I'd like to call the Neshaminy School Board work session with a few action items to order. Ms. Burns, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Allen.
Present.
Mrs. Hallenbeck.
Present.
Mrs. Bowman.
Here.
Mr. Kovitz is absent with prior notice. Mrs. Lafferty. Here. Mr. Pirantano.
Present.
Mr. Cirillo.
Here.
Mr. Sporny.
Here.
And Mr. Sullivan.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To announce the board met in executive session this evening prior to this meeting to discuss matters of employment, issues related to labor relations, the purchase or lease of real property, matters related to litigation, and matters related to school safety and security.
Point of order, Mr. Allen. I'd just like to make a note that for the most part, the Sunshine Act requires the agenda for this public meeting. If a change is made to that agenda within 24 hours, to be that change to be adopted by the board by motion. So before you this evening, at 2.03, I believe is the section, is the a bond parameters resolution. This morning, the text of that bond resolution changed somewhat. It did not change the amount that you're authorizing, but it did change the broadness and scope of what that money could be used for if the bond is secured. It did change it to the use of a new elementary school and or to renovate Pearl Buck and for other capital projects in the district. So the options are there for the board to do that. So that was a substantive change. So if the board is of a mind, a motion would be required now to authorize a change in the agenda to that effect. So
I would like to make that motion.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Sullivan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? So the motion.
No announcements.
Board, please.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Welcome back and Happy New Year, everyone. Interestingly, January is School Board Director Appreciation Month. So I'd like to take a moment to say I appreciate you all very, very much and remind everyone that they are elected officials, but they are volunteer elected officials. They receive no compensation. They choose to serve on a public board and shepherd our school district forward and keep track of the district's money. So thank you, and in 2 weeks you'll be authorizing a motion to honor yourself awkwardly for School Board Director Month, as we've been doing for some years. I don't know why. So second, I'd like to talk about a potential school closings because of the staffing issue based on the present COVID issue. So today was the first day of school. Sorry about January 3rd. Every night we look at staffing, and every morning we look at staffing, and it takes a certain amount of people to run our schools. Some we can run it without on a given day for a few days. Others we cannot run school without a certain amount of bus drivers to get our kids here. We cannot run school without a certain amount of teachers. We cannot run school without a certain amount of people to prepare food, security, etc. So each morning we assess that. We did it all last year as well, and we've managed to get all the way through to today without closing, and we hope to do the same. We hope to do the same. That being said, today was awfully close. In one particular building, we were down a third of the certified staff, the teaching staff, a third. We were able to keep that building open by sending support there. Every certified staff member that wasn't tied to a classroom went to that building. Administrators went to that building. We had some people that should have been helping kids with reading and math or teaching them music, teach classes. We were able to keep that building open, and we will continue to do that. Not the best plan, but the best way is to get kids in school. The problem is if that gets worse. If there's a second building that joins them at that rate, we've exhausted all. The cavalry's already gone to one building. So there might be a point where we have to pause and say, that school has to go remote for that particular day, and we are prepared to do that. Not that it's coming, but we are prepared to do that. And if it's system-wide or in a critical area like transportation, we might have to move the entire district that way. So that's just what's coming. It's been on the plate for all of this year and a significant part of last year. Never has to happen. We came awfully close today. So hopefully today will have been the worst day, and we can move on from that. Finally, obviously, the topic of this meeting for the most part is the health and safety plan. So I hope you all have read my multiple emails on the topic, and I just want to summarize that to some extent, and then if there's specifics in public comment, I will try to address them at the end of the meeting. So clearly, the community transmission rate is the highest it's been. All right, there's no arguing that. But in August, the nation decided, including the CDC, that the most important thing is to get kids in school. Have every kid the opportunity to come to in-person instruction every day. That said, they give a caveat of things that you should try to do, assuming you could keep doing that. All right, the intent was not to shut down our schools by having to do X, Y, and Z. So we've been able to do that. So there seems to be 3 points of contention. One is the CDC guidance, the other is masking, and the third is the idea of contact tracing. So let me just briefly talk about all three of them. The CDC guidance, clearly the best practice to be the safest. Unfortunately, they produce a series of recommendations that unintentionally can't be done without changing the educational environment. And let me give you an example. Last year, the CDC's best intentions told 330 million Americans that 6 feet apart was important, and they accidentally closed schools around the nation. We didn't open in September. We finally opened in October with half our kids to keep them 6 feet apart and some online. All right? Not the CDC's intention was not to close schools; it was to keep people safe. We were able, through local guidance, to shrink that to 3 feet against the CDC recommendation with our elementary kids in November and our secondary kids in April, and we're able to do that successfully. Also, the learning model produced, the chart produced by the CDC, if we followed that chart last year, we would have been in remote for most of the year. All right. Instead, we used local knowledge, best practices, our means here in Neshaminy, and we're able to do better. So CDC guidance is just that. And yes, it's research-based, but unintentionally, they give us conditions that can't allow us to operate school as we want. So that's some of the issue going on here. Now, 3 feet is okay in the nation, and we're continuing doing that. And that remote instruction model that we see doesn't exist anymore. So the best practices that they have for us sometimes can't be done if the goal is to keep kids in school with a quality education. All right? The same thing is kind of happening now with their new recommendations, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Contact tracing. Last year, we, 3 members of the cabinet and building principals, were the contact tracers in the district. We left our nurses do nursing things, our teachers do teacher things, our counselors do counseling things. And contact tracing involved, while the kids were 6 feet apart, not a whole lot because they weren't considered close contacts, all right? That was while we were 6 feet apart. Once we came within 6 feet, they all were considered close contacts to somebody positive. So at the elementary level, you have one positive kid, and there are about 4 kids that sit around that kid that are less than 6 feet apart. Based on a seating chart, assuming they were present, principal and Mr. Meehan investigate, and those kids were excluded. It was 14, then it was 10, then it was 7 with a test on 5, but those 4 kids were excluded. And that happened for every kid who was positive, or every staff member who was positive. At the secondary level, that happens first period. A child's positive, 4 around them when we brought them back in less than 6 feet. Then it happens second period, third period, fourth period, fifth period, sixth. That number is between 40 and 50. Last year, seating chart, a bunch of them, and send kids out. All right? That's how it worked, and that was a significant amount of work. When we brought the high schoolers and the middle schoolers back in at less than 6 feet, there was a period of time after spring break where we had close to 1,000 kids excluded from school, and the contact tracing process was collapsing our administrative team because that's all they had to do. Fortunately, we adopted at that point the Bucks County modified quarantine, which relieved some of that pressure and got us to the end of the year. So now fast forward to this year. It's the same process with the same number of kids, but the case investigation involves a series of questions that aren't just looking at a seating chart saying you were there. So for that one positive kid at a high school and then 8 periods down, there's 40 interviews to do. The interview involves, have you been vaccinated? How many times have you been vaccinated? Have you been boosted? Or are you wearing a mask? Have you had COVID in the last 90 days? And by the way, do you have proof of any of this? So that's just one case, 40 interviews. And then add the elementary kids, you probably should have a parent there for that discussion in some extent. All right? So the process that they present us, well-intended, well-meaning, probably the best practice, would collapse our system. And then think about what we have to do afterwards to track it. Somebody tonight's going to ask, how are you going to keep track of kids wearing masks after they come out back after 5 days? You can't do it well. It's going to have to be the honor system. All right? So the goal of saying this is telling people exactly what we can and cannot do well, and then allowing parents and their physicians to tell kids when to come to school and what to do. So contact tracing, I don't know where it's being done and being done well. I know the county's no longer doing it. Mr. Meehan, Ms. Burkhalter, Mr. Devlin, and Mr. Bowman are doing it well with their building principals for the year because it was easier to do because it's 6 feet or because everyone was masked. Now it's far more difficult given the vaccination requirements, et cetera. So it's our belief that it should be left to families and their doctors to decide what the rules are and when a close contact should come back to school. So there's 2 different things. A positive individual, they're going to be excluded for 5 days and then come back with a mask for 5 days. We don't know how we're going to keep track of coming back, just being honest. The close contacts, we're not going to identify and exclude because we don't have the means to do it and do it well without changing the educational environment. So if the expectation is X, Y, and Z that we're going to do this, we're going to have to adjust someone and maybe move the kids back further apart, stop them from moving. So last year, I don't know if you realize this, we put kids in seats and told them, and we didn't move them. This year, we're having good education, moving kids around, et cetera. So the final piece is masks. I walked around 4 buildings today so I could get my own assessment. Tomorrow, my principals will report both attendance and masking. From my unscientific approach today, I was at Sandburg, and I witnessed a class change, and I went into about a dozen rooms. I would say Sandburg's masking percentage was above 90%. All right, that's at Carl Sandburg Middle School today. I walked across the hallway to Schweitzer, connected to Sandburg. I didn't get a good number there, about 80%, because the kids move a lot and they'd like to talk to you, so I got distracted, but it's definitely up there. Maple Point, I literally think it might have been higher than 90%, but it was 90+% walking into classrooms, saying things. At the high school, I observed 2 change of classes and was in about a dozen classrooms. That masking percent was about 50%. That said, as you know, we were probably losing the fight at the high school for masking anyway. So that's my view of what's happening as far as masking. So it's not really all or nothing, it's some combination of that, and the combination seems to be relatively high throughout. So that's the goal of the health and safety plan, not to say what we might be doing and not do it well, to say what we can do to keep our kids in school. If it's not safe, we'll see it ASAP. I'm assuming someone who will tell me if my plan wasn't ready to go, a public health official, one of my cabinet members, an administrator, other people would say, this is not a good idea. Right now, people seem to be on board with it. If it changes, I won't hesitate to change it and get us back to a safe place. All right, so that, Mr. Allen, is the rationale behind the health and safety plan, and I believe that'll be a big topic.
Thank you, Dr. McGee. At this point, I'd like to call for public comment on agenda items only. Please be mindful of the 3-minute time limit. And Ms. Burns, when we have any signups.
Emily Alexander.
It doesn't have to do with what Dr. McGee just talked about. So do I go later?
It's okay.
Okay. Good evening. I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Emily Alexander, and I'm here to talk about bullying. I would like to start by acknowledging that I understand your job is harder than ever and appreciate your help in tackling these issues. My daughter, Carly, is a 3rd grader at Hoover Elementary and has been the victim of ongoing bullying this year. These events all happen on the bus and have been progressively getting worse. Finally, on December 8th, she was beaten so severely she received a horrific concussion. Still today, she cannot participate in school regarding work, recess, gym, and sometimes lunch. At home, she cannot be too active, involved in sports, read, or watch TV. Not only has her injury affected her physically, it affects her mentally as she suffers from severe anxiety and anger that she, a victim of assault, be punished while the other kid has no long-term consequences. While seeking a resolution, I have been in contact with the teachers, nurses, principal, superintendent, SRO, head of transportation, and more. As mentioned, this has been ongoing physical bullying where multiple emails were sent, then video surveillance was pulled and verified. Initially, they assigned only Carly a seat near the front to keep her safe. I talked with Carly, and we made a plan to be more understanding and tolerant. I admit that was a mom fail, as it doesn't allow others to touch her regardless. After that, she stopped telling me about the assaults, and I learned about it from other people. On the last occasion, the bus stopped on Lincoln Highway to pull him off of her, then returned to school where I was notified. The video was horrific, and I encourage you all to watch it. I am here today so we can make a plan to stop the bullying the first instance it happens. From this, I've learned a couple things about the bullying policy. Number 1, it is out of date. It is supposed to be revised every 3 years, hasn't been revised since 2015. And number 2, it doesn't specifically include the bus, just talks about in school and cyberbullying. I learned each kid is disciplined differently and believe there should be a standardized policy in place for everyone. The child who assaulted Carly is apparently also bullied, and I quote, because other kids know he's quick to anger. I feel moving him to a different bus, which was only done after a police report and a social media post, does not change the fact he is still bullied and can potentially act out again. I fear this is not an isolated incident to 1 or 2 kids in the district. I would love to have a private meeting to show you all documents regarding these incidents, including emails to and from staff, pictures, medical documents, as I feel it would be inappropriate to share private information in a public meeting. I will say the building principal has been in constant communication, and I can tell he genuinely cares. In conclusion, I'd like to leave you with a question from my daughter. I asked Carly why she stopped telling me about the bullying and how she felt. Her response was, "Who cares? Does it even matter?" Thank you.
Matt Taylor?
Matt Taylor, Red Rose Gate, and self-employed. I'm here tonight to voice my support for the revisions to the health and safety plan put forth by Dr. McGee. This plan is a huge improvement from the current plan as it begins to return normalcy to schools and gives parents the choice to make health decisions for their kids. COVID still remains mild for kids. The AAP still says that severe COVID is rare in children. Some may reference reports of increases in pediatric hospitalizations. Dr. Fauci made a statement on this topic. He said, if you look at the children that are hospitalized, many of them are hospitalized with COVID as opposed to because of COVID. Many of the pediatric hospitalizations have nothing to do with COVID. The numbers are overcounted. As a personal example regarding this issue is an experience my family had with my niece. She's 7 years old and immunocompromised. Whenever she has a fever, she automatically has to go to the ER at CHOP. Last week, she had a fever and her parents took her to the ER. They tested her for COVID and she was positive. They told her parents, and I'm quoting, "She came up positive for COVID, but honestly, everyone is now, so it's no big deal." My niece was sent home and is recovering just fine. I'm sure that was added to the count, though. CHOP doesn't seem too alarmed by kids getting COVID, and neither should we. We must return schools back to normal. These mitigations have clearly robbed children from quality of education that they deserve and have taken a negative mental and emotional toll on them. We can no longer accept more harm to children in exchange for less harm to adults. We must begin to repair the damage that's been done and vow to never let it happen again. Passing this plan would be a good start. Thank you.
Jamie Taylor?
Hi, Jamie Taylor, Red Rose Gate, stay-at-home mom to 3 kids. I first want to thank Dr. McGee and the board and show my support for the proposed health and safety plan. I do believe it's a big step in the right direction towards normalcy for our kids. So here we are now, 2020, still living in this pandemic and still placing the burden on our children. My oldest is a first grader at Walter Miller. She has yet to have a normal school experience. She doesn't know what it's like to go on a field trip, have field day, go to class parties, birthday parties, or even a simple thing such as having lunch in the cafeteria with her friends. The attempt at the virtual Halloween parade was one of the saddest things I have seen. Children should be excited to show off their costumes to their parents and teachers, but instead they walked in a circle, separated by class, waving at a camera on a stand. It was truly depressing to watch and not fun, according to my daughter. In addition to the lack of social events for these kids, which affects their mental health, the learning loss has become immense. Children fell behind when this all began in 2020, and they haven't caught up. Here we are 2 years later, and this has become its own sort of pandemic. Neshaminy needs to go back to doing what they do best, which is educating our children and keeping them safe. Leave the health decisions up to the parents, as it should have always been. We now know, even with vaccines and boosters, COVID isn't going anywhere. It poses little risks to children, as my husband just stated, so it's time to go back to normal. I'm asking the board to please approve the proposed health and safety plan effective immediately so we can begin to repair the damage that has been done to these kids. Thank you.
Alex York?
Good evening. Alex York. I live in Forsythia Gate. I have 2 children at Sandburg, and I also have 2 in the high school, a sophomore and a senior. I do want to thank Dr. McGee, all the members of the board, all the Neshaminy teachers and staff, our bus drivers, for everything that we've been working through, especially through this school year to maneuver through this mess. And while we're trying to manage opposing views with everything, I know we're all working together to try to get back to normal as much as possible. We appreciate what's been done as we have been slowly moving towards normalcy. Thank you on behalf of my kids to the school leadership and the staff for allowing so many of their beloved activities to go on as normally as possible this year. Was a number of the activities and the dances and the end of year celebrations that we're hoping to continue to have that they lost in the past couple of years. This has made this moving back to normalcy really has made a huge impact on their outlook and their attitude towards going back to school every single day. They've lost so much in the past couple of years that it's been wonderful to see them getting that back again. When we did get the email in December recommending the recommended revisions to the health and safety plan, it actually gave us an opportunity to see an even brighter light at the end of the tunnel. We know that we are not there yet, but it was a step in the right direction. I do agree with many of the points made in the plan and the topics covered that I won't even go through them all here, but just kind of putting in writing the message that we all have come to a point, I think, the majority of us, where we really need to learn to live with the virus, and is something that we have strongly believed in for some time now. I really feel that the district has put everything they can possible in place to mitigate the exposures, from the facilities work that's been done to making the vax and mask optional for those who choose those options. I know my kids feel comfortable at school. I feel comfortable with them being at school September, and that has not changed even now with a lot of the increased cases. It's simple. If we are sick, we're going to stay home. Whether it turns out to be the cold, the flu, or COVID, we're going to continue to do that in order to keep each other safe. The email that just came out the other day did give me a little pause and concern with the messaging of them being preparing for remote learning and Zoom links. Today, even when the kids came home from school today, and a lot of the reports that came back, like, they're getting us ready for remote learning. So that does have us a little nervous, but we're having faith that, we understand and know that we do have to be prepared in the event of the staffing issues, which we know is a valid point, but the anxiety is starting to grow a little bit there.
Miss.
Okay.
Please wrap it up.
Thank you very much. So please consider this as our support to pass the recommended revision plan today. Thank you very much.
Jeremy Blumenfield.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Blumenfeld. I'm a lawyer. I live in the Maple Point development and have for 20 years. I have a few things to say about the safety and health plan. First, President Allen, I've been to many of the recent board meetings. In September or October, you explained why you voted to require masks for K through 8 and not for the high school. You explained that the high school students were older, that some of them would soon be joining the military and making other important decisions in their lives, and that it was appropriate to allow these students to also make other important decisions, like whether to wear a mask or not, essentially as a teaching moment for them. I disagreed with your decision, and I disagreed with the reasons for it, but I respected that you articulated it and articulated the reasons for it. My question is, what's changed? Why are you now okay with making masks optional for middle school students and elementary school students? They're not joining the military, they're just kids, and you and other members of the school board are responsible for their health and safety when they are in school. The second thing I want to mention, I know there's been a lot of talk about the fact that COVID generally tends to be milder in children. We can all be thankful for that. The latest data suggests that there were about 800 school-age children nationwide who've died from COVID. I also started to think about other safety and health measures required at schools, including this school, to protect kids. Fire safety, for example. There is, on average, about one school-aged child who dies in a school fire every year. Yet, even though it's only one student, schools have elaborate procedures in place. You have fire alarms, tests, and prevention equipment, and you require all students when they're in school to go through multiple fire drills. You don't make fire drills optional for students. Of course, I know that maybe the reason there's only one student death in schools is because you have fire drills, because you have that equipment. That's kind of my point. Maybe if schools took the same approach with COVID, that is, engaged in mitigation strategies, there would be fewer student deaths, fewer student illnesses and injuries from COVID too. Third, I want to talk about the actual words of the Safety and Health Plan. It says that Neshaminy will continue to be masks recommended. I have two questions about that. Why are you recommending masks for students? I think we as a community are entitled to know the answer to that. I have my views, but I think we're entitled to know yours. And two, what are you doing to recommend to students that they wear masks in schools? Do you expect teachers or principals to encourage students to wear masks? Are you guys going to do it? Very few of you are wearing them today. This pandemic isn't over, much as we would like it to be. We can't pretend like it is over, though. Please require masks in schools. Thank you.
Berkeley Brenner.
Hi, I'm Berkeley Brenner, and I'm a student here at Maple Point. I would like to thank Dr. McGee for making a better change for our students. Thank you.
Jennifer Brenner.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Brenner. I'm in the Twin Oaks section of the community. I'm self-employed. I wanted to say also thank you, Dr. McGee, one, for our snow day yesterday. I wasn't ready to get dressed and sit in the car line either, so thanks for helping me out there. I want to show my support for the health and safety plan. I believe since the very beginning that families need to do what is best for them. Whether my child is here in Maple Point or if she's in the high school or the elementary school, we as a family made our discussions, weighed our pros and cons and what was important to our family and how to be safe. And we came to our conclusions. So it's nice to see that we're slowly getting back to a modified normal. The children need to be in school. How many children are not being taught properly when they're at home because parents are having to work from home? They're not learning. We don't know if they're getting proper meals when they're not at home or when they are at home. We don't know the care that they're getting at home, but when they're in a community, in a classroom, our teachers, our staff, they all look out for them. So I'm really glad to see this is moving forward. Thank you.
Kim Gorman.
Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. First, I want to welcome our new board members, Kellen and Alicia, and congrats to John and Cindy. I'm really looking forward to all that you guys are going to bring to the district. I also want to thank Dr. McGee and the board for recognizing that sending healthy kids home is not an effective tool for mitigation. So let's talk about that. At this point, we're going into a third year of this, and it seems pretty clear to many of us that contact tracing is worthless. Removing children who came in contact with another person who tested positive with the notion that they are now a threat to the other children because they may in a few days, if they're tested, come up positive. It's kind of ludicrous, right? Because that's really where we are. Remember back in 2019, if your child was sick, you kept them home. You didn't need to alert everyone that they may have come in contact with for the past week that your child wasn't feeling well. I know it's been a while, so it's probably tough to recall. How about this? Do you remember taking a test to see if you were sick? But you're not actually showing any symptoms, like today's Tuesday. My sister was sick the other day, so maybe I should go get a test to see if maybe I'm going to get sick too. I hope you all hear how absurd that sounds, but that's where we are. The testing has to stop. Everyone has been exposed. You're probably being exposed right now because the person you are sitting next to probably came in contact with someone who came in contact with another person who had a positive test. I know it's frightening, but it's true. So many people feel the need to test every time there's a sniffle or a cough. My question is, if the test is positive, what are you going to do differently? Besides take an ad out to let everyone know, how are you going to treat the symptoms? Cough syrup, NyQuil, chicken soup? You can't even go to a doctor because they won't see you if you're positive. There's no magic solution if your illness has a name or not. And as far as infecting someone else, if you're sick, you typically keep your distance, something we've been practicing for decades. On Facebook the other day, there was someone asked a question, why get a test if no symptoms? And one of the comments was, because you can still spread it, duh. So by this logic, we should all be testing daily, right? Because we all could be spreading it, so we should know. So I know if you're listening to mainstream media, the talk is that so many children are being hospitalized, like Matt had mentioned. But the one thing he didn't mention that Fauci also said, aside from being admitted with COVID, not from COVID, he also had said that every person that comes to that hospital, no matter what the reason, is tested. And what you may not know is that for every one of those tests that are positive for somebody that is admitted, they get up to $3,000. So there is a huge, huge incentive for hospitals to test for COVID and to get a positive case. So we would be living completely normal lives if there were no testing. Cases don't matter. Masks cannot stop an airborne virus, which has been said by the CDC recently. And as I have said probably every time I spoke, you cannot hide from a virus, ever. Like nothing is going to stop it until it runs its course, and here we are. We're only prolonging it by trying. No vax, no mask, no shutting down in your home. Nothing can stop a virus. This is why we have the flu virus that mutates every year. If we named them, we would come up with a new name every year too, because it's always a different strain.
Time.
Awesome. Okay, I can stop. Thank you very much.
Mike Gorman?
Hi, everyone. Dr. Mike Gorman. I live in Red Rose Gate, and I'm a chiropractor and functional medicine doc. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you and all the teachers. Never a harder time to do what you're doing, and teachers, so we appreciate it. One of the things I want to say, I think we all forget, is we're all on the same team, even the people that are opposing tonight. We all want the same thing for our kids. We want the best thing for our kids. We want them to be healthy. We all just have different vehicles or thoughts on how that might be. The more that we can start to come together and align and keep that in mind, I think the better off we are. But one of the big things that we all want is, as parents, we want to be able to choose what's best for our kids. And I think that's especially important with everything going on right now. One of my questions is, do we have all we need to make the best decisions? So let me just give some quick things on that. When we've got some of the doctors from Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Oxford, arguably the 4 best medical schools, speaking out against all these measures, masking, the vaccine, different things, and being censored, that should send a chill down everybody's spine. This isn't some alternative weirdo magazine or something. These are the top doctors in the world. The founder of the mRNA technology just got booted off Instagram. That should make everybody in this room go, what is going on? It's one thing to say somebody's spreading misinformation when they don't have credentials. These people are highly credentialed. I routinely, for the last 2 years, have many friends that I talk to in the ER and ICU. They are seeing crazy vaccine side effects. They are seeing more vaccinated people in the hospital and ER as opposed to what they're reporting, and yet if they're told if they speak out, they'll have their license taken away. So there's a lot more going on that we're basing decisions on. Like my wife said, there's a lot of conflicts of interest that are financial in nature as well. Incentives for testing, things like that. The PCR test, even the founder of it said it was never designed to be used. Even Dr. Fauci and many experts said the PCR tests several months ago should not be used, but we're going to use them for the rest of this year. A couple years ago, when all this started, they adjusted the cycles of the PCR test to make the cases go up. As soon as the vaccine came out, they adjusted the cycles of the PCR test to make it look like they're coming down. When you're following this data, it's all there, but most people are unaware. So, are we doing all we can? All we seem to talk about is defense. How about offense? Do you know that by taking the proper amount of vitamin D, you decrease your chances of serious complications by 15 times? The vaccine decreases it by 1.3. So why is there not one talk about vitamin D? Vitamin D alone, there's been now several meta-studies, which are over 50 studies. They all say the same thing. Every single person in the ICU. Time? Oh, my God. Okay. I don't know if they can do that, but No. Okay. But I agree with this.
Free to come back on the second public comment.
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
Tanya Renkus?
Apologize, I should have mentioned that to all of you.
Good evening, everybody. Tanya Rinkus from Sunny Hill. Thank the board, thank Dr. McGee for what you've done thus far. Not a good public speaker, I apologize. So I want to give you the support for what you do. I know how hard it is. And going forward, what the health and safety plan has in it, I support and agree with. I think a couple things that we could maybe enhance, because nothing is perfect, there's always room for improvement, is maybe with the masking policy for the teachers. Leave it up to the teacher for their masking policy. And as far as the lunches for the children, if they're in class next to each other, why separate and face opposite directions for lunch and then come back together in the classroom? Just a couple things to think about going forward if we, things go in the positive direction. And there's something else to mention about the other school district. Up northern Bucks County, the other school districts that had masks optional from the beginning, their numbers are not any worse than ours. I believe they're actually better than ours. So that's something to take into account, I think, as well. What's going on throughout the county, not just like the lower end. That's all I have. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Colleen, sorry, I can't read the last name.
Hello, everyone. I am Colleen Afanasiev. I am from Tarryton Estates. I have a daughter in the high school. She is a freshman. I also have I have a son as well. He does not attend Neshaminy any longer. It is a private school, and they are definitely a lot freer with their health code, and I guess it's because I pay for that. So we have a lot more freedom. I do appreciate all that you do. My daughter is getting a decent education. It hasn't been a great education, obviously, because of the challenges. Being in school has made a huge difference. I appreciate you letting them come back, you taking all the measures to bring them back safely. My question to you is, if staffing is an issue, and I realize it is an issue in all industries, however, I know a lot of people would love to teach in the Neshaminy School District. So what are we doing to increase the opportunities for the teachers? Are there workshops? All these kids who are graduated from college, what are we doing to try to get some people, some quality teachers who want to teach in the Neshaminy School District? Also, I know transportation is an issue. I don't know what happened to everybody who was working in 2019, where they all went. I work in the restaurant industry, so I'm more than aware that there's a huge shortage of workers. I know in the beginning when COVID happened and transportation was an issue, we had asked parents to help out. I think a lot of parents actually still drive their kids to school. So maybe we can do some carpooling rather than shutting schools down and have it be virtual, since we all realize it doesn't work. As one of the other parents mentioned, we don't really know what goes on at home. I know personally I have never worked from home since the pandemic, because I cannot work from home with kids and a dog and a cat and a husband, and everyone wants to just eat all day, and I have work to do. So my point being, I would love to see our kids stay in school. Again, I appreciate all that you do. I know this is a very difficult time for everyone, but I think it ends when we say it ends. And at this point in time, I think we're realizing now the vaccines aren't working because people are vaxxed, double vaxxed, boosted. I don't know how many of you were sick over Christmas, but I know everyone I know was sick over Christmas, whether it was a cold or it was COVID. It's not going to go away. It's a virus. It needs to run its course, and we need to build our immunity to it. I'm not saying that it's not serious. Of course it is, and I feel horrible for those who lost people to it. I think also now we are a little bit more aware of how to treat it properly and not intubate people and ventilate them and keep them isolated. I don't think any of that helped. So again, I thank you for what you're doing. I hope that you will consider keeping our kids in school and making masks and vaccines a choice for the parents and the families. Thank you, everyone.
There's no further signups.
Thank you. Moving on, draw your attention back to the agenda. The board has a number of action items we need to go through. I'd like to ask Ms. Hollenbach to read 2.01.
2.01, 2022 School Board Meeting Calendar Revised. Whereas the Neshaminy Board of School Directors adopted a schedule of public meetings for 2022 at the School Board Reorganization Meeting held December 6, 2021, and whereas the January 11th, 2022 work session meeting was revised and rescheduled as a public board meeting on January 4th, 2022, now therefore be it resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby adopts the revised 2022 school board meeting calendar.
Do I have a second on that motion? Second by Mr. Cerullo. Motion on the floor. Any discussions? Seeing none, call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstentions. Motion passes 8-0.
2.02, Spiesel Architect Approval for Fieldhouse Project. Whereas the Neshaminy Board of School Directors desires to construct an entrance to the high school stadium that includes a new concession area, training rooms, men's and women's bathrooms, and locker rooms. And whereas the proposal from Spiesel Architects has been reviewed as a professional service for the design and construction documents for the work therein to be completely competitively bid, now therefore be it resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby adopts the proposal from Spiesel Architects as submitted, subject to final contract review by the district solicitor.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
Second.
A second by Ms. Hollenbach. Motion is on the floor for discussion. None? Bring it to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 8-0. Brings us to item 2.03. Mr. Peritano, would you read that for me, please?
Thank you, Mr. Allen. 2.03, Resolution to Authorize Bond Issuance. Resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the attached resolution to finance general obligation bonds.
There's a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? Second. A second by Mr. Sullivan. Sorry. Call for discussion on the motion on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Once again, motion passes 8-0. .04, I will read this motion. COVID Health and Safety Plan Revision. Whereas the Neshaminy School District is required by the Pennsylvania Department of Education to approve a COVID and safety plan. Whereas in order to be eligible for federal elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds, the Neshaminy School District is required to review the COVID Health and Safety Plan, considering up-to-date guidance from local, state, and federal agencies. Now therefore be it resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the revised Neshaminy School District Health and Safety Plan as presented, subject to any changes necessary due to orders, conditions, and additional guidance from the applicable government agencies. Do I hear a second? A second by Mrs. Bowman. Motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Bring the motion to vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 8-0. That brings us to items for approval, the January 25th, 2022 public meeting. Ms. Hollenbeck, would you like to read 3.01?
So the next items for approval at the January 25th public meeting are the routine matters, the resolution not to raise taxes above the Act 1 index, out-of-district placements, the Bucks County Technical High School Joint Board, overnight trips, and that's it so far.
All right, I thank you. That's going to bring us to section 4 of our committee reports, and I turn it back to Ms. Hollenbeck for the business operations.
The next business operations meeting will be in this room, 6:30 on January 27th. We will be discussing, of course, the budget as we always do, as well as the other projects and where they stand with the bond and things of that nature. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to educational development. Mrs. Bowman.
Hi, good evening. Happy New Year, everybody. There's no update since our last meeting, except that the district did approve our comprehensive plan, or I'm sorry, the board approved the district's comprehensive plan on November 23rd. Our next meeting is scheduled here in the boardroom for Tuesday, February 15th at 6:30. Thanks.
I thank you. Mr. Sullivan, bring you to facility and planning, please.
Yes. We had a meeting, I think it was a week before the holiday, to discuss the new school, possible school on the Maple Point property, as well as the field project. And we have a meeting on January 19th to continue the discussion of both those matters. 6:30.
At 6:30. Okay. I thank you. Mr. Cerullo, do you have an update on the policy committee?
Thank you. The next Board Policy Committee meeting will be Thursday, January 20th at 6:30 p.m. in the boardroom. We will continue to review Policy Series 200, discussing pupils. All are welcome to attend.
Thank you. Brings us to our representative reports, and we turn back to Mr. Cerullo for the IU report, please.
Unpopular. The Bucks County IU on Saturday, March 26th from 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. is going to hold a STEAM Saturday Cardboard Carnival. It is going to be held at their brand new Fab Lab Center. It is located at 1 Ivybrook Boulevard, Suite 150 in Warminster, PA. I believe you do need to purchase tickets for it. It will be a very fun and interactive event. So looking forward to that, and hopefully you can make it. Again, it's the Fab Lab Center on Saturday, March 26th, and you can go to their website, the Bucks County IU, and be able to purchase tickets and look up some more information. Thank you.
I thank you. I have a report here from Mr. Kovitz on the Neshaminy Education Foundation. I'll read into the record. The board of the Neshaminy Education Foundation met in December to choose the winners in the 2021-2022 competitive mini grant program. They are pleased to announce the funding of 8 grants throughout the district for a total of $9,947. A list of the winners and descriptions of their projects can be found on the NEF website, www.neshaminy.org/NEF. The next meeting of the NEF Board will be held on Monday, January 10th at 4 p.m. at Maple Point. Community members are welcome to attend and participate to help the NEF support our Neshaminy schools. And Mr. Veritano, the PSBA report, please.
There's been no action on the PSBA as of yet. I hope next month to have a report for the board.
I thank you. That brings to me in the technical school. I didn't think this through. Bear with me while I grab my quick notes. The Bucks County Technical High School Joint Board Committee met on December 21st, 2021. It was our reorganization meeting. We voted on president, first vice president, second vice president. That was Ms. Kelly Buchanan from Bristol Township was named president. Ms. Kim Rivera was named first vice president. She is from Ben Salem School District. And Ms. Donna Getty was named second vice president, and she is a representative from Morrisville School District. A number of housekeeping issues made to, staffing, salary discussions were done. We also approved the solicitor for the coming year of Sweet, Stevens, Katz, and Williams. And our student representative report, I would glad to report that Daniel Sting from our 12th grade here in Neshaminy was named one of our November Students of the Month, along with Patrick Steiner, who is in the Skills for Life program. They're both Neshaminy students, and we are supporting, and we're very proud of that. In a joint effort with Bucks County Rescue Squad, students in the Emergency Services Technology again collected new unwrapped toys for the United States Marine Corps Reserve Toys for Tots campaign. Toys collected at Bucks County Technical High School were distributed to less fortunate children throughout our community, age range being 6 months to 12 years. And the COVID pandemic hit many of our community hard, but several families were impacted by the flooding over the summer. Many of them remained displaced, so that was an important activity for tech school students to were involved in this year. Skills USA held a Skills USA Day on Wednesday, December 8th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Oh, sorry, read that wrong. December 8th and 10th. 11th and 12th grade students competed in their technical areas, while 9th graders were presented with Skills USA and career development information. The winners of the technical competitions will move on to represent the tech school at the Skills USA District 2 competition, which will be held January 20th. This is old news here, that the applications were accepted for the 2022-23 year, and the lottery drawing was held Thursday, December 16th. The next meeting will be January 24th, 7:30 in the boardroom. And that is my report for the tech school. That brings us to our second period of public comment.
Microphone, John. Your mic's on.
Oh. I'm sorry. Get in the habit, turning on, turning off, turning on.
I've been there.
Yeah. Should have like a proximity thing. All right. Again, the podium is open for public comment. Second period, those who wish to complete their thoughts, or, again, 3-minute time limit.
I just want to. Kim Gorman. I just wanted to clarify what Tanya was trying to say as I was trying to feed it to her. That the mask required districts, Bristol Borough, Bristol Township, Morrisville, New Hope, Solbury, and Pennsbury, have a higher case rate of the 7-day cases per 100,000 than us optional districts, and that was the data as of today. So I just wanted to put that out there, that the masks are not stopping anything. We're doing better. So that's all. Thanks.
Anyone else?
My name is Mary Ellen Pulak. I live in the Twin Oaks section of Levittown. Been there for 36 years. I've been employed with Neshaminy School District for 22 years. I'm a paraprofessional, and I want to let all the parents know that things are a lot better. I do let Dr. McGee know what's going on in the classroom. When we were just meeting 2 days a week with the children, I was testing the children, and they weren't doing too well. Once we went back to 4 days, it was amazing how much better they did. And I let Dr. McGee know that. This year, yes, we're wearing masks. Yes, I have the windows open every day. Some of the children are still wearing masks. Most of them are still, some aren't. But we have fun. We do a lot of fun things in our classroom. Last year, one of the first things we did when the kids were back for 4 days was in December. The teacher I work with had a box wrapped and do not open till December 23rd. The kids were wondering what was in that box. We opened it on December 23rd, and there were 23 bags of cotton balls. And everybody got a bag of cotton balls, and we had a snowball fight. We were still finding cotton balls in June, but we had fun. That was when we were separated. This year, we did the same thing. Now, I knew what was in that box this year. This year, we went outside, and we threw the cotton balls outside because we know that they are biodegradable. I take care of the gardens at Carl's, at Albert Schweitzer. So we know they're, and the kids today were looking out the window. They're still there. The snowballs are still there. And we are having fun. Don't think, yes, this is the most challenging time that I have ever had in school. But the teachers that I work with and the staff, we are there for the children every single second. Today I was asked, because we were very short-staffed, if I would take care of them for their lunch. So I stayed for lunch. I told them they had a different, their lunch aid wasn't going to come, and they were all so sad until I told them it was me, I was going to be it. Then that was okay. I made sure every one of them ate, so they all had a good, nutritious lunch, and they had fun. We are making sure that they are having fun. They really are lacking in some skills, and it's going to take us a while to get them to get those skills. But please know that every teacher that I know of is working so hard to make sure that our children get the absolute best that they can get. And they're getting it. They're getting everything that I have and everything that every teacher I work with has. So please know that. Thank you.
Seeing no one rising to the podium, I'll call public comment closed. Ms. Burns, do we have future topics?
Sorry.
It's on the agenda, I have to ask.
Future topics we're supposed to come up with.
That brings us to Dr. McGee.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. I'll see if I can clarify some of the questions from public comment. First of all, Mary Ellen, that's why we need to get every kid an opportunity to come to school every day, because I have about 1,000 Mary Ellens out there, whether it be the crossing guard, the bus driver, the IA, the kitchen staff, the lunch aide, the teacher, the counselor, etc. All those touches during all those touches and contacts during the day are the safety net. And every kid needs to have that advantage, because some of them, that is their only safety net. So that's why we prioritize what has to happen. So thank you, Mary Ellen, for underscoring that to get going. And thank you for telling me there was snow somewhere yesterday. I looked out my window for 8 consecutive hours waiting for snow. Just that, I should have come right there and sat. Answering some of the other questions, yes, we are preparing for remote learning. It's preparing, it's making, the kids will never find the spot. The parents won't be able to help them. The teachers, we're trying to make all our mistakes now in case we have to do it. We did it quietly in September. Nobody noticed. All right, I should have done it in December. we're doing it now, just in case. It's coming. It might come. It might come tomorrow morning. I have no idea, but we're preparing for it. The whole staffing thing, it's not about finding teachers. It is about finding teachers. It's about finding day-to-day replacement staff. So when a bus driver's absent, I need a replacement bus driver, a sub. When a teacher's absent, I need a replacement teacher, etc. That's what we don't have. So it's not about finding teachers. We have them. We're fully staffed in that area. Might even be close to fully staffed in the bus area. Very, very, very close. It's about finding the replacements, which are hard to find. Secondly, pre-COVID, and it will be post-COVID, kids, young adults graduating with teaching certificates is dropping dramatically in the Commonwealth. It might be half. It's projected to be a quarter of what it was in the past. They've gone to other professions for whatever reasons. All right? So we're going to have a problem finding replacements post-COVID as well. That'll be our next issue. How do we find certain areas? So that's the staffing issue. Isn't I need a teacher all year. There are some we do when they go on leave. But right now it's that 13 teachers absent at a particular building. I needed 13 subs. I didn't have 13 subs. So that's what the issue was there. Masking recommendations, that is it, the masking recommendation. What have we done for the first week that it was a masking recommendation? I asked each principal to inform their staff a statement from me to their students to say something to the effect, our superintendent, Dr. McGee, respectfully asks that you have a mask with you and wear it when you're in close proximity to people. Haven't done that this year. Wanted to get through tonight's meeting. We will continue to do that. Obviously, people are choosing to wear masks at the moment. And there was a question about teacher masking. Staff is asked to mask when they're in close proximity to others. All right, they're not required to mask at all time, but when they get in close proximity, and some of them spend all day in close proximity to because that's what good teaching is. So they're allowed to take it off, spread out in the room with their colleagues, or spread out in the room with students. They are allowed to take it off just when they're in close proximity. So I think, Mr. Allen, I've addressed the questions that I kept. All right.
Thank you. I think for board comment, I'm going to go around the room, start with Mr. Sporny, if you have it.
Sure, I can make a quick comment. I just wanted to address Miss Alexander quickly.
Mr. Sporny, I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to say just one thing. Student discipline matters, employment matters. My advice is to not make a comment specifically as to those issues during board comment or in public. Okay. So.
No problem. Yeah, the only other comment I would say as far as the health and safety plan, I personally, I'm a stakeholder just like everyone else. I have a 5 and 7-year-old in the district currently. My take on it, not that we all need to give our justification, but as far as this option, to me, it seemed like it deserved a chance. So that's where I came from. Personally, I'm not overly enthusiastic about masks on kids. I'm not overly enthusiastic about masks not on kids. I'm not overly enthusiastic about anything having to do with this pandemic. I want my children to have the same opportunities as we all had. Fantastic, vibrant upbringing in Neshaminy is how I look at it. So I think that's what we're all trying to do. How we get there is a little bit to be determined. But for me personally, I felt like this option deserved a shot.
Yes, I wanted to address the overall comment about the bullying policy, which is included in policy number 249, which was revised October 19th, 2021. So it was updated recently. And it does include all school grounds, and that includes transportation and any activities on or from door to door. So from the school building until the child is dropped off at their bus stop. Also coming down here to Colleen, it's the teacher issue, like Doc McGee said, it's a subbing issue. Substitute teachers cannot be found anywhere. All the districts are struggling with finding day-to-day substitute teachers. So, if you know people you want to recommend, hotshot out of college, they graduate in January, tell them to start by subbing. We always need substitute teachers. There are some temp agencies, and if you want to, Doc McGee can give you the contact or how to get in contact with them after the meeting. Okay, and Mary Ellen, thank you for your dedication and always engaging the kids in very fun and activities, and thank you again for your dedication. I value you. I wanted you to know that. And thanks, and Happy New Year.
May I jump in here, Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Since we're advertising for day-to-day subs. No, I like the idea. I should have done it myself. The qualifications are simply a college degree to start, so it doesn't have to be an education major. If you know someone that wants a sub, send them to me. We'll get them set up. All right?
No comment this evening.
I actually don't have any comment. Thank you.
No comment either. I'll defer my time to Mr. Puritano because I'm sure he'll use it, so.
Thank you. What do I want to say here? Mrs. Kolish, is it? How do you say your last name? Mary Ellen? Kulak. I'm sorry, didn't mean it. That was a great story. I love those stories, and keep bringing them. They're what we want to hear, and that's why we're here. Exactly what you're talking about is why we all want to be a part of this. Ms. Alexander, I know Mrs. Bowman already alerted you to the policy. I encourage you that after I don't know what policy you're referring to. It's very confusing right now because we're not done our full update on our policies. Right, there's policies on board doc, and then there's policies in the old section, and we're trying to migrate them all over. But after you have a chance to review that one, if that's not the one you referred to, we are having a policy meeting on the 20th. Everybody's welcome to come. Nobody ever does, but if you want to get some input, that's a great place to do it. I also want to apologize for what your daughter has gone through. And, it's our goal to make sure that the policies the board institutes, the administration carries them out to their fruition, and I'll be more than glad to talk to you, after the meeting. Other than that, I want to thank everybody for coming out and voicing their opinions. I feel very confident in the plan that Dr. McGee and his staff put together. As a board, as a whole, we've relied on our administration to guide us through this period. Of course, they've asked for our input, but we recognize that they still are the educational professionals. They may not be the medical professionals, but they're the educational professionals that really do believe in giving our children everything they deserve. When this pandemic was first hit, so many of our children got shortchanged. That's something we can't make up for. But as we are transitioning from which is a pandemic to an endemic stage, we need to make sure that we try to bring normalcy back to the educational setting because that is what our children deserve. With the relative certainty, nothing in this life is certain, but I am confident in the mitigation protocols that we put in place, both from a facilities point of view and from what we're asking parents, basically, everybody observe the honor system. Your kid's sick, keep them home, just like before, just like Mrs. Gorman said when she was at the podium. It's not rocket science as far as that's concerned. But we also understand there's logistics to parents' work, but let's try and do the right thing, and it'll help make it easier for everybody. And I'd like to end by wishing my wife a very happy birthday today. I hope that there's still cake when I get home, or we haven't blown the candles out yet. And she didn't object to me, coming to the meeting tonight. So I don't know what that was about. But happy birthday, hon. I love you, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you, Ms. Hollenbach.
I have no comments tonight.
Again, I think I can, I echo most of what the board members have said regarding our, I'll get right to the point, the health and safety plan. You know, said before, we've done our best to follow guidance, and that guidance has been fluid. We are at a point now where this is the recommendation of our superintendent and his staff. This is what we can do, and we will continue to do our best. Without getting into too much detail, you have the health and safety plan in front of you. I did want to respond to the gentleman who asked what changed my opinion as far as masking. And it's true. I believe that the high school age at that time, and still at this time, needed to step up and to take what I feel was civic responsibility in regards to keeping themselves and the rest of their community and the schools safe. And I felt they were old enough to make that choice. If we don't allow them to make choices, I don't see how we teach them to make good or bad choices. What changed in general, as far as my thought on the elementary school, is easy. It was the environment that we provided for our schools. Between then and now, we've added, for one, the bipolar ionization project, the cleaning of our schools, the increased air changes. If anyone isn't clear on the bipolar ionization, that adds ions into the atmosphere. It makes a hostile environment for pathogens such as the COVID-19. It also creates heavier molecules that make it easier for our filtration equipment to take out. All of those mitigation measures we added with the intention of keeping our children as safe as we possibly could in our schools. That's what's changed. We were able to provide that. The availability of vaccines throughout the younger generation also was taken into consideration. That's what's changed. And with that, also want to thank Mary. What a wonderful story. Love hearing that of dedication of our teachers and our children getting back to normal and enjoying being in school with their classmates. That's one of the main reasons why we are all here.
I do it for a month.
And we are so well paid at that, aren't we? And with that, I will conclude my thoughts. Again, Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for coming out, and above all, thank you for being civil and presenting your views to all of us. We appreciate that. Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. We're done.
As always.